A baker was making a delicious batch of blueberry muffins. He carefully prepared the batter and placed the muffins in a 350-degree Fahrenheit oven. As the muffins started to rise and take shape, one muffin turned to the other and said, "Wow, is it just me, or is it getting really hot in here?" The other muffin gasped and shouted in terror, "Oh my God, a talking muffin!" Welcome to Acquisition Pro Tips, where we seek to demystify and break down the essentials of government contracting so you can navigate the process with confidence. I'm Josh, a warranted government contracting officer, and in today's video, I'll be speaking on Simplified Acquisition Procedures, also known as SAP, and why it matters. But before delving into this topic, I want to thank all those individuals that have subscribed recently. Your support to the channel is much appreciated, and we're getting closer to 100 subscribers every day, which is an exciting milestone for the channel, so thank you. Let's jump right into FAR Part 13 of the Federal Acquisition Regulation and break down the basics of Simplified Acquisition Procedures. If this is your first time visiting the channel, and you're just getting your feet wet in the world of federal contracting, some of the terminology I just used may have sounded unfamiliar or even downright confusing, so let's take a moment to simplify it. The Federal Acquisition Regulation, or FAR, is essentially the rulebook for how the federal government buys anything. It's divided into parts, each focusing on specific aspects of federal contracting. Whenever the government spends money, whether it's on office supplies, aircraft parts, IT services, construction, or training, we have to follow a standardized set of rules. Those rules are all well written in one giant document called the FAR. It's basically our Bible. It exists to ensure taxpayer money is spent fairly, responsibly, and transparently. When I refer to FAR Part 13, I'm referring to the section of that rulebook that covers small, simple, and low-risk purchases. Instead of using long, complicated processes for smaller buys, the FAR lets us use a much faster, lighter, and more flexible method called Simplified Acquisition Procedures. FAR Part 13 tells us when we can use these faster methods and how to use them. SAP is essentially the government's way of saying, if the purchase is small and low risk, don't overcomplicate it. Ask for a few quotes, compare them, make a smart choice, and move on. SAP allows contracting officers to buy things quickly without all the formalities of big, complex contracts. The rules are still there, but they're intentionally lighter and more flexible. And if you've worked as a GPC holder, approving official, or Squadron RA, you've already been using SAP, whether you realized it or not. SAP includes the Micro Purchase Threshold, or MPT, Blanket Purchase Agreements, also known as BPAs, the Government Purchase Card, SF-44s, Fast Payment Procedures, and Purchase Orders. All of these are designed to simplify purchasing for the federal government. The Micro Purchase Threshold, or MPT, is the dollar limit the government uses to determine how simple a purchase can be. As of October 1st, 2025, the MPT is generally $10,000 for most purchases, but it can vary based on factors like location and emergencies. For example, during contingency operations, the MPT increases to $20,000 inside the United States and $35,000 outside the US in overseas environments. The GPC may even be authorized for single purchases over the MPT, up to $25,000 using SAP. Below the MPT, you don't need a formal request for quote, also known as a RFQ. You don't need public posting through a government-wide point of entry, aka GPE, and you don't need formal competition. You just confirm that the price is reasonable, the vendor is responsible, and you're following GPC program rules. For the US Air Force, this is outlined in Department of the Air Force Instructions 64-117. But once a requirement exceeds the MPT, it enters the world of Simplified Acquisition Procedures. At that point, competition requirements return, small business rules kick in, and documentation becomes more structured. The Simplified Acquisition Threshold, or SAT, is the upper limit for using Simplified Acquisition Procedures. As of October 1st, 2025, the SAT has increased from $250,000 to $350,000. Anything at or below this amount is generally eligible for the streamlined process that saves time, reduces paperwork, and gives contracting officers more flexibility. The SAT can still vary for contingency operations or overseas acquisitions, such as $800,000 for contingency operations or $1.5 million for acquisitions outside the US. Now let's talk about FAR 13.5, which is one of the most powerful tools in the SAT. FAR 13.5 allows simplified procedures to be used for certain commercial buys up to $9 million. If the product or service is commercial and meets FAR Part 2 definition, then contracting officers can use the same streamlined SAP tools for multi-million-dollar actions. The reasoning is simple. If the marketplace already sells it competitively, the government doesn't need to treat it like a high-complexity acquisition. There are limitations, though. Construction and certain service types tied to inherently governmental functions are excluded. But for true commercial requirements, FAR 13.5 is an incredibly efficient tool. Market research under SAP is iterative and scalable, meaning it should be tailored to the complexity and dollar value of the requirement. Even though we're working under SAP, FAR Part 10 still applies. The goal is to understand the marketplace well enough to make informed decisions. Market research under SAP should be lighter, faster, and more targeted. It doesn't need to be exhaustive, just sufficient. You need to know who can supply the requirement, whether the need is commercial, what a fair price looks like, and whether competition exists, especially within small businesses. If you can document those points clearly, your market research is sufficient. Documentation doesn't need to be lengthy. Vendor searches, catalog reviews, historical pricing, small business research, and email outreach all count. The goal is simply to show your logic and decision-making. Once the acquisition strategy is set, the solicitation process begins. This is essentially how you advertise your requirement to industry to obtain quotes. The simplest method is an oral RFQ. Even though it's called oral, it is almost always done through email today. The FAR encourages oral solicitations when the requirement is under the SAT. It's more efficient than electronic posting, and an exception to synopsize applies under FAR 5.202. When a synopsis is not required, or when you want to streamline the public posting process, you can use a combined synopsis solicitation, commonly called a combo. Think of the synopsis as a movie trailer that alerts vendors about what's coming. Under SAP, we don't need a long lead time, so we combine the synopsis and solicitation into a single announcement. This serves as both the advertisement and the RFQ. When evaluating offers, you choose the evaluation factors that matter most: price, technical capability, delivery, and past performance. You keep it tight and aligned with mission needs. Competition under the SAP promotes fairness without unnecessary complexity. FAR Part 13 requires competition to the maximum extent practicable. You're looking for reasonable opportunities to compete, not formal source selection levels of rigor. Once you're above the MPT, the rule of two applies. If market research identifies at least two responsible small businesses that can perform the work at fair market prices, then the requirement must be set aside for small businesses. However, this is not applicable with overseas contracting, since FAR Part 19 concerning small businesses does not mandate it. Sometimes competition isn't possible, or a specific brand is required. In these cases, brand name or limited source justifications are needed. Even under SAP, these justifications must be factual, defensible, and properly documented. Evaluating quotes under FAR Part 13 is designed to be efficient and streamlined. FAR 13.106-3 emphasizes price reasonableness as a key factor, granting contracting officers broad discretion in determining how to evaluate offers. Contracting officers can compare quotes, review historical data, examine catalog pricing, or consult the Independent Government Cost Estimate, or IGCE. The most important aspect of this process is documenting why the selected price is fair and reasonable. Let's walk through an example to illustrate how evaluation factors are applied under FAR Part 13. In this scenario, the government receives 4 timely SAM-registered quotes. We want to make sure that we're eliminating any unwanted bias, whether it's intentional or not. So because of this, we're going to refer to our vendors as A, B, C, and D. So now the evaluation process begins with technical acceptability, which is assessed by the subject matter expert, or SME. The SME reviews each submission to determine whether the vendor meets the requirement as written. This evaluation is conducted on a pass or fail basis. In this scenario, vendors A, C, and D all pass the technical capability assessment, while vendor B fails and is removed from further consideration. As the requirement owner's SME, or technical expert, your role is to assess the offerer's quotes based solely on technical factors, not price or any other evaluation criteria. To ensure an unbiased evaluation, it is considered best practice for the contracting office to redact any information that could reveal pricing details or the identity of the vendor, such as company names, addresses, or logos. This precaution helps eliminate any potential for unintentional bias during the technical review process. The SME must clearly document their rationale for determining whether an offerer's quote is technically acceptable or unacceptable. This documentation should be thorough and defensible, as it will be added to the contracting officer's file and may serve as supporting evidence in the event of a protest by a losing vendor. A well-documented technical evaluation not only strengthens the government's position, but also ensures transparency and fairness in the award process. Next, we move to price. Both vendor A and vendor D offer prices that align with market research and the IGCE. Vendor C submits a significantly lower bid that appears unbalanced and risky. Unbalanced pricing can indicate potential performance risk, such as underestimating costs or cutting corners, which could negatively impact the government's mission. As a result, vendor C is removed from the competition due to unbalanced pricing. Vendor A, with the lowest price among the remaining vendors, is assigned 4 points in this example grading system, while vendor D, being the second lowest offer, is assigned 3 points. At this stage, vendor A is deemed the lowest priced, fair and reasonable offerer in accordance with FAR 13.106-3, which states, whenever possible, base price reasonableness on competitive quotations or offers. We then evaluate past performance. Vendor A provides strong, recent, and relevant past performance on similar contracts, demonstrating a consistent ability to meet or exceed expectations. Vendor D provides limited past performance, but the examples submitted are sufficient for consideration. Vendor A's past performance is clearly more advantageous, earning them an exceptional rating and 3 additional points in this grading system. Vendor D receives a satisfactory rating, which earns them 2 points. If vendor D had not submitted any past performance information, they would have received a neutral rating and 1 point, as FAR 15.305 prohibits penalizing offerers for a lack of past performance history. Conversely, if an offer had submitted examples of unsatisfactory past performance, they would receive a score of -1, reflecting the increased risk associated with their history. Finally, we evaluate delivery. Vendor A proposes delivery in 20 business days, while vendor D proposes delivery in 10 business days. The mission requires delivery within 2 weeks, making vendor D's offer the stronger option in this evaluation area. To reflect this advantage, vendor D is awarded 2 points, while vendor A receives only 1 point. The delivery schedule is often a critical evaluation factor, similar to technical capability, as it can make or break the requirement. In some cases, delivery is considered a sub-factor within technical acceptability and is assessed on a pass or fail basis. If the requirement must be delivered by a specific date and an offerer cannot meet that timeline, their proposal may be removed entirely from the competition. In this scenario, however, we have confirmed with our mission partners that they are flexible with the delivery timeline and can accept the 20 business day delivery proposed by vendor A. While vendor D's faster delivery is more favorable, both offers remain technically acceptable, allowing the evaluation to proceed with consideration of other factors. Putting it all together, technical acceptability, price, past performance, and delivery, vendor A demonstrates the best value to the government, even with their less favorable delivery schedule. Vendor B was technically unacceptable and removed from the competition. Vendor C had pricing concerns and was also removed from the running. Vendor A and Vendor D met all requirements and were evaluated based on the established grading system. After adding up the points, Vendor A received 4 points for their pricing, 3 points for their exceptional past performance, and 1 point for their less favorable delivery schedule, giving them a total of 8 points. Vendor D receives 3 points for their pricing, 2 points for their satisfactory past performance rating, and 2 points for their delivery schedule, giving them a total of 7 points. Using this point-based grading system, we have determined that the contract award winner is Vendor A, whose offer presents the best value in accordance with the solicitation's evaluation factors in FAR Part 13. All of this information, along with the rationale for our decisions, will be documented in the basis of award document and the price, fair, and reasonable determination document. Documentation under SAP follows one simple rule. The file must tell the story clearly without unnecessary volume. You are not preparing a formal source selection, and nothing requires lengthy narratives. For a typical SAP action, you need your market research, your solicitation or RFQ, the quotes you received, any clarifications, a short evaluation summary, including a price, fair, and reasonable determination, and your award decision. When these pieces are present and logically written, the file is complete. SAP documentation is about clarity, not quantity. Now, let's jump into the acquisition pro tips for this video. Acquisition pro tip number 1. Know your dollar thresholds to avoid unnecessary contracting involvement. In OCONUS environments, the GPC may be authorized for single purchases over the MPT, up to $25,000 using simplified acquisition procedures. During declared contingencies, the MPT increases to $20,000 inside the United States and $35,000 outside the US. Knowing these elevated thresholds helps mission partners operate more efficiently and avoid delays. Acquisition pro tip number 2. Use FAR 13.5 wisely. FAR 13.5 allows SAP for commercial items up to $9 million. But remember, 13.5 is built for speed and simplicity, not complex trade-offs. If your SME needs to compare technical approaches or evaluate detailed methodologies, a formal FAR 15 source selection is more appropriate. Acquisition pro tip number 3. Use a numbered rating system to support best value decisions. If you receive multiple technically acceptable offers, assigning numerical values to price, past performance, and delivery can help you remain objective. This creates a methodical structure that protects you in the event of a protest. Acquisition pro tip number 4. Remember that FAR 15 still applies when vendors request information. FAR 15.503 Brava 2 requires a brief explanation. This includes the number of offerers solicited, the number of proposals received, the awardees identifying information, pricing details, and general reasons unsuccessful offerers were not selected, without disclosing proprietary or confidential data. Acquisition pro tip number 5. Consider FAR Part 8 when ordering from GSA Advantage. Instead of posting a combo, FAR 8.405-1 allows ordering activities to survey at least 3 scheduled contractors or justify fewer and award to the vendor providing the best value. This approach eliminates the need for a public posting and streamlines the action significantly. Keeping it simple is the name of the game with SAP, and working with your CO to find those best practices can save you an immense amount of time, decreasing your procurement administrative lead time by weeks, and in some cases, even months. If you enjoyed this video and you found it useful, please consider liking this video, subscribing to the channel, and hitting the notification bell so you never miss another acquisition pro tip.